Welcome to the 17th episode of the Honor Society, covering all things Ring of Honor, live from the No Sale Studios. I'm the ace of the tavern, Ace Filled Retro, and joined as always, my partner is filled with honor at Mullet.mania. Colton, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's up, Ace? Man, what a great episode of ROH Weekly TV we just watched, man.
Yeah, man, it was a great episode, and like we were saying week after week, I feel like they're getting into a rhythm. They're really establishing ROH separate from AEW, and the no commercials makes the show really flow. It's the fastest 2 hours in all of wrestling.
I know, man. I'm just, every time I look at my notes at the end of the show, I'm just overwhelmed by how much they pack into 2 hours. And yeah, really good stuff. I feel like we also, we've been talking for the last 2 weeks how we'd like to see a show intro. I feel like we kind of got one tonight. I mean, it was just kind of a generic ROH video package, like opening roll, but it's better than nothing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as time goes on, they're really going to establish what the production looks like. And as we transition to weekly programming, and I felt there was a shift this week because the spoilers weren't as evident. You had to go searching for them. And the card felt fresher than the first 2 weeks, because I think there was so much attention on what was going on in ROH that everyone was like, oh, cool, Zack Sabre Jr. is here. And we know that Eddie Kingston's going to be there. I went in really blind, honestly, to this episode, and that's what made it a little bit of a more entertaining watch on my end.
Yeah, same here, man. I didn't have any spoilers whatsoever. I went in totally blind, and yeah, I hope that continues. And do my best to try to avoid them in any way, shape, or form. But it's hard these days. So,
finding the news on the dirt sheets of what we do here on the Turnbuckle Tavern. But let's get into the scoop and talk about the ROH news. Not a lot to break down, but of course, when we see those three letters in the dirt sheets, we have to report it here on the scoop. Man, what an underrated bumper there. That one is it bangs a little bit, Colton, but
oh yeah, it slaps.
Let's get into the news here. And Samoa Joe was talking about CM Punk, and anytime CM Punk's name is mentioned in the news, it makes headlines. And he was speaking about that 60-minute draw that they had back in Dayton. And I thought it was interesting talking about CM Punk, because we'll get into him in the news as well, because there was a little bit of we're making news out of nothing with CM Punk this week. And of course, we'll talk about that. But he was talking about the 60-minute draw and talking about the history of ROH. And Samoa Joe had said, he was on a recent interview on the WrestleZone show, and he said, I think there's a lot of things that stand out about that 60-minute draw. I think it's something that's kind of relevant today and maybe put some people's mind at ease in our industry. A lot of that came together hours before. This is something that was not an overthought think piece. This was done out over several days. We were forced into a situation. I believe Carino was stuck in Japan, and it was something that ilk where that he had two commitments and couldn't just make it back in time. And Dayton was a new market. I believe at that time we need to have a strong showing. So they talk about that famous 60-minute draw. The shoot interview, I think that was done by CM Punk and Samoa Joe sitting in the room, that famous YouTube video where you can see them sitting on a really shitty video quality. They're just talking about this match. Apparently Punk came up with the idea, but that match to me is like prime ROH, that draw. Have you ever seen that match?
I have not. That's definitely one I need to go back and watch.
Yeah, match is fantastic. And also talked about how ROH in general, like the idea was always tapping into new market and have good showings where they go. And he talked about every time ROH came into a new market, we had to have a strong showing. There was no choice. If we didn't, we were dead in that area. Hit like that at a company at that time in its infancy would have been devastating. To invest the money to go out there and have been a failed venture. So we had to deliver every time we went into a new area to keep fans coming back. So that match was important to the history of ROH, but also this sort of rings true with AEW. We see them expanding to new markets. We see them going across Canada. We're going to see Forbidden Door being in Toronto. But yeah, I mean, for a young company, especially, I mean, AEW is established at this point, but tapping into new markets, it's one of those things. It's like, it's a risk you're taking. It's obviously always the goal, but it's definitely a risk. And there's always been a risk with wrestling companies.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to see AEW doing a little bit more of it now. Like they're breaking into some smaller markets here with doing the house shows. I think they've got their first one this coming Saturday in Troy, Ohio. So yeah, it's definitely something that all promotions need to do and should do. And yeah, good to see it.
We also have Carrie Silken, former owner of ROH, in the news, and there's been some Ric Flair explosions in the news. I'm sure you saw the stuff with Dutch Mantel, but Carrie Silken was chiming in, kind of piling on Flair a little bit. And, Dutch Mantel had said that Flair was a miserable old wrestler trying to make a buck. I'm sorry, Flair said that about Dutch Mantel, and obviously Mantel returned the favor saying other things. But we got a story that maybe it's not just Dutch Mantel and Flair that have heat. Apparently, Carrie Silken was saying that essentially Ric Flair was supposed to do 2 ROH dates or 3, and he never made them. And Carrie Silken paid him up front $41,000, and Flair never paid him back and never came out. And the tweet said, Flair owes me $41K for not fulfilling Ring of Honor appearances in 09. Yes, I was a moron to pay Rick up front. That's my story. It's sad but true. So thoughts on that? Does that change your opinion on Ric Flair, or is it sort of like, adds to the legend a little bit?
Adds to the legend a little bit for me, man. I mean, shit, 41K, Rick's spilling more drinks. He's spilling more drinks than 41K in a weekend, man. That's just chump change to him. I mean, I hate to hear it. You never want to hear about somebody not getting their bills paid, especially a promoter. But why is it coming out now is my question. This is 09. We're talking, 15 plus years here. Like, really want to wait that long to make a stink about it. But I mean, yeah, you didn't get paid. So, I think Rick's making, seems like he's making pretty good money these days, selling his own weed strain with the Ric Flair drip. True. So maybe he's got a little cash he can throw old Carrie's way and bury the hatchet.
Well, apparently some of the issue came from Dutch Mantel being critical of Ric Flair's last match, and Dutch Mantel buried Ric Flair about it and then continued to double down. Flair got defensive, and Dutch was like, dude, the match sucked. It was horrible. It had no business taking place. You were a liability. And then Carrie Silken came in and defended Dutch Mantel. And that's when Carrie's like, hey, by the way, Rick owes me a whole bunch of money. So maybe just reminding people, maybe he'll get paid back somewhere down the line.
Yeah, I think Rick's better off staying out of social media arguments and probably out of the media as much as possible these days.
Or just staying out of social media, period. Stop. I think that's
yeah. Probably a smart call.
I mentioned the CM Punk tease, and this might be reaching a little bit, but I have to mention here, he does have a big lineage with ROH, and you can't think ROH when you don't. I mean, CM Punk, they're synonymous at this point. CM Punk seemingly teases an ROH return. This was the headlines on a whole bunch of dirt sheets, not Wrestling Observer, not Fightful, but anywhere you get your wrestling news. This was mentioned in some capacity. So Punk posted on his Instagram story, working out the gym with the song, quote, "Honor Never Dies" by Hatebreed playing. Many fans felt this was an interesting tease because Honor Never Dies being the song choice, maybe just in the mood for some Hatebreed. But Colton, do you think this is leading towards maybe an ROH return? Because it's kind of fueling both messages. You get Punk back in the fold without having the AEW tie.
It seems a little too intentional to me, man. Yeah, I think that it's definitely he's leaving breadcrumbs out there for something. I mean, there's plenty of other Hatebreed songs he could have posted himself working out to. There's a lot of good workout songs in the Hatebreed discography. So, be interesting to see, man. I mean, if he's been throwing breadcrumbs, he's been a lot more active on his Instagram lately, responding to fans in the comments and stuff. So, I mean, I would be very surprised if that's all for naught and we don't see him come back in either ROH or AEW in some fashion.
Yeah, I think he's going to come back to AEW, and I also wouldn't know about the social media. He blocked me from the initial brawl out scrum. At Acefield Retro was blocked by CM Punk, and I take that as a badge of goddamn honor.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, if he's going to come back, I feel like it's weird to have him return on a taped ROH showing. So if it's going to be back, it's probably at one of these pay-per-views. So maybe SuperCard of Honor if he's definitely going to come back. I don't think that's happening. I think it's an AEW return because he's too valuable of an asset to be elsewhere. And right now, I hate to say it, we're on an ROH show talking about ROH, but it's still secondary to the mothership that is All Elite Wrestling.
Absolutely. I mean, and for me, it has the potential to be one of the greatest storylines in pro wrestling history for him to come back to AEW and take on Kenny and the Bucks. And yeah, I absolutely want to see it, but I'd take him on an ROH pay-per-view too any day.
Yeah, I just think this, I mean, honestly, I don't know if there's much to it. Obviously, CM Punk's always going to make headlines, but Honor Never Dies. I think it was intentional. He knew what he was doing. Let's just say that. I think he knows what he was doing, but does it mean he's returning imminently to ROH? No, but Honor Never Dies was an interesting choice when he typed that in the song section of Instagram on your story. Like, he knew what he was doing, and that's what makes CM Punk CM Punk. It actually makes him a good businessman.
Yeah, most definitely. He's an intentional guy. He doesn't do much by accident. So.
Yeah, that's very true, but talking about someone like Shibata, we saw the end of the ROH show where Wheeler Yuta called out Shibata, and you and I predicted this a few weeks ago about potentially Shibata getting a shot at ROH SuperCard. And the one thing people were talking about, and especially Dave Meltzer in the newsletter, was that why is Shibata wrestling for ROH and not New Japan Pro Wrestling? I honestly didn't think about that. I just thought maybe the relationship between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling just was a working thing. But there's apparently legitimate heat with Shibata based on the match that he had in New Japan recently, because Meltzer mentioned that on Wrestling Observer Radio that when he had that match, his last match in New Japan against Ren Narita, he was not supposed to take any headshots. They were supposed to do a sparring match. And this was night one of Wrestle Kingdom back in January 2022. So it was billed as an exhibition match, if people remember, similar to Shibata's return match with Zack Sabre Jr. a few months prior. But Shibata and Narita went all in. They went into business for themselves. They worked a standard New Japan match, really put New Japan Pro Wrestling in a liability state, because Shibata wasn't supposed to be taking headshots, and he was. The noticeable confusion of the announcers, they had no idea what was going on. And it was later reported Shibata changed the rules of the match on the fly. New Japan officials backstage had freaked out over it. So we haven't seen Shibata back in New Japan Pro Wrestling since then. Maybe the bridge is burned. He put them in a really bad spot. And this was a really big deal. And if this happened on an AEW stage, a WWE stage, it'd be the biggest wrestling story of the year. But because it was in New Japan, it just got buried underneath. And because it was a legend like Shibata, it made headlines. But no one really talked about this. But it is a huge, huge deal.
Yeah, man, that's pretty wild thing to do. I mean, yeah, you're Shibata, your big name, kind of do what you want, but that does put New Japan in a really, really difficult position. So yeah, interesting to see how it's kind of been swept under the rug a little bit. I don't think that bridge is burned permanently. I think eventually, hopefully we'll see him on New Japan programming again. But man, I'll take him all day in Ring of Honor. I'm stoked to see him. I mean, not confirmed. Yuta just called him out tonight, but I don't see why it wouldn't be. Man, I'm hoping to see that at SuperCard of Honor. I'm ready for that match. Let's go.
Yeah. So if everyone remembers, the Shibata injury was a life-threatening head injury. We had a brain bleed back in 2017, ended his career, and then the fact that he was coming back, it was a modern miracle. So the fact he got in the ring, they were trying to ease him into it, and for the New Japan trainers, they just wanted to make sure he was good to go. And we saw him wrestle Orange back in the summer on AEW television. If you guys remember, Mike Tyson was at ringside doing commentary for some strange reason. But, Meltzer used the term, he double-crossed them. So, there's a lot of heat with Shibata in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And it hasn't translated to ROH, AEW. It feels like Shibata is being able to be used. But there's a lot of, if he's willing to do something like that, I don't know if he could be trusted according to officials. If he's going to do that, what else is he willing to do to go into business for himself? And that's not my opinion. I'm sure businessmen feel that way.
Yeah, most definitely, man. I mean, you can't, liability is a liability. You got enough liability putting on a wrestling promotion just with, potential for injuries and anything. So yeah, you got to be able to count on your guys to do business and to go with the plan.
And this is, essentially the same company that's okay with Naito falling on his head and Kota Ibushi, going down and landing sideways on his neck. So, they had to be a really cause of concern if Shibata alarmed them to that level. These are people that are pretty okay with taking stiff bumps, but Shibata's health was in jeopardy. He could have died in that ring. And what are we talking? It's a completely different story that we're talking about.
Yeah. Nobody wants to read that headline.
Yeah. So the final news here, we have Austin Gunn talking about his time in ROH and why he hated it. I honestly forgot that Austin Gunn was even part of ROH in any capacity, but he had referenced 2019. He competed in the top prospect tournament of ROH. This is Austin Gunn. He spoke with the Under the Ring podcast, and he said, "I'll keep that long story short. I hated my time in ROH, not because of my experiences, just because I wasn't ready to be on my own, and I had to move to Baltimore to go to the developmental system. Once I got there, I was living in a hotel for 6 months. My whole schedule flipped upside down, and I wasn't very independent by then. I wasn't cooking my own meals. I was overeating. I was pushing myself to work out every day." He continues that by the time I got out of there and moved back to Orlando, I got myself in gear and ready. It took me 2 months to get ready for my debut in AEW, and I haven't looked back. I'm not bashing ROH. It wasn't for me at the right time. I was depressed and I wasn't having a good time. Interesting to hear him talk openly about that. I love to hear people being candid and transparent about their mental health issues, because it makes people a little bit more open to dealing with them on the spot. But Austin's time, he admits he was immature and not ready for it. And, we're seeing him thrive in AEW. But, the connection with ROH is still there. Maybe he'll get a little, maybe the Guns will appear there eventually and get, I don't know, a little redemption for himself.
Yeah, that would definitely be cool to see. I'm same page as you. I completely forgot he had any time in ROH, but yeah, I mean, always love to see people being transparent about mental health issues. Dax does a lot of that on his podcast these days, and I think that's great. But also really like to see that he's taking ownership and saying that it wasn't just the promotion, also had a lot to do with his maturity level at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a huge thing. And there's been so many guys that have come in and out of the door, both successful and unsuccessful, and it's a who's who of wrestling. So, so even guys we don't remember like Austin Gunn. So it would popped up in the news feed. I just thought I'd mention it because they are the reigning AEW tag team champions. So they deserve some respect on their name. But you ready to get into the ROH TV results?
Dude, let's do it.
I'm popping it on the bottom over here. And of course, we have ROH TV results. And as you mentioned, Ian Riccaboni and Caprice Coleman are on the call as usual. And, this is going head to head with March Madness. So obviously it's on a streaming deal. They kind of got lucky because if they were on TNT or TBS, they would be overshadowed and even preempted by basketball. But you get your wrestling fix. Nothing's preempting on Honor Club. Here we go. We're getting ROH on a Thursday night.
Yeah, man, another benefit of having your own streaming service because it's hard to compete with March Madness doing anything. So especially with the games today, some major upsets. But yeah, man, first match opening up the card, a proving ground match. Excited to see it. I love this concept. Willie Mack coming out, man. Willie Mack, I've had the pleasure of seeing this guy live, I think 3, maybe 4 times at Impact shows here in Louisville. He's an incredible big man, dude. I mean, he is the most agile 280-pounder I've maybe ever seen. The proving ground match, as we all know, 10-minute time limit. If you can get the pin or if you can go the distance with the champion, you earn yourself a spot. I thought it was a good match. I did not get a look and see exactly what the time count went, but I mean, it definitely, Willie held his own, man. There was multiple times where I was like, oh man, Willie might be able to go the distance here. We might be seeing a shot of Willie Mack in LA. He's a LA hometown boy. That would have been a really, really cool thing to see. What'd you think of the match?
I thought it was short, but I did like that Willie got some good spots in there. The nip up and the standing moonsault was awesome. Very athletic for a big guy, as you mentioned. So huge thing there. I could see why Willie Mack is high on everybody's radar. And I've seen him a few times. He wrestled GCW about a month ago. As you mentioned, Impact. So anytime he's on your screen, he's captivating. And I mentioned on the AEW wrap-up show last night, like he feels like Junkyard Dog with all the best attributes, with a little bit more athleticism, with the ability to, like I mentioned, the flipping things and the fact that he can move around so fast with someone his size. It's akin to things that you really haven't seen. It's deceiving with the things he's able to do in the ring. And I think he has a main event feel. I don't think he looked overmatched by Claudio by any means here. And that's saying a lot because this was one of those matches, as you mentioned, proving ground. Even though he didn't last the 10 minutes and he's not able to get the title shot yet, I thought he looked really good in a losing effort against Claudio in a short period of time. That's challenging to do.
Oh, most definitely, man. And yeah, talking about that kip up, he does that every match I've ever seen him in, but doing it on the 9 count for the 10 count, it really hooked me there, man. It was awesome. But yeah, hope to see more of Willie Mack. I think, I always enjoy seeing him, and I think he'd be a great fit for ROH.
Yeah, I definitely want him to be in the top main event. And when we look at the building the different divisions, we're starting to see the tag division come together. The pure division has a little bit more semblance of order. And then also go down the line with the TV division. It's going to be settled, I think, once they take the title off of Joe, if they decide to do that SuperCard of Honor. The main event's going to be challenged and put together because, as we've been mentioning on show after show, we don't want to have it be, minor compared to the AEW superstars that are at the top, the biggest names. And I think it's important to differentiate. If Willie Mack shows up on AEW television, it has to be in a big way. Because Claudio, as we mentioned before, we start to see Claudio on AEW television. Sometimes he doesn't look like he's on par with the biggest guys there. He feels like he's secondary, and I think they have to change the perception. But a guy like Willie Mack feels like he could be a main eventer on both sides. And I really mean that. I was very, very impressed with him. I'm always impressed with him, though.
Yeah, most definitely, man. And he's an absolute veteran. I don't know how old Willie Mack is, but I know he's been at it for a long time. And man, he just never seems to miss a beat.
And we obviously the ending saw the running uppercut to score the win, and kind of caught him off guard. We saw him go up to the top rope for the frog splash. Seeing Claudio move out of the way, deceptively agile for a big dude that he's able to do the things like akin to Kevin Owens or very much like that. I think we can see him work a lucha style. Even though he's a big dude, he sticks to most of the ground and pound. But there's some stuff he pulls out, man, every once in a while he throws out the flippy things. And I was a huge fan of this match for the short amount of time they gave it.
Yeah, same here.
So we move to Dante Martin and Mike Bennett. I'll let you take the lead on this one. But this is, two tag guys going one-on-one. So it's always an interesting dynamic to build. And obviously Mike Bennett of the Kingdom, Dante Martin of Top Flight. What were your thoughts on this match that they had here?
Man, it was quite a good singles match. Like, Bennett has consistently improved since his WWE run. Him and Dante Martin worked really, really well together, and I think it was a really good way to heat up this tag feud. We've already been hearing about the Reach for the Sky ladder match, and we didn't get an official announcement tonight of who any of the other teams were going to be. But I think, especially after this match, I think it's pretty clear that we're going to see Top Flight in that run, and probably the Kingdom as well. So, they quickly got into a chop exchange that Martin won before drilling Bennett with a drop kick. Maria got in his way. You definitely bringing in, Taven and Maria as, factors there, like they always are outside the ring. He get him with that pile driver right there on the ramp, which was so almost uncomfortable to watch, man. When he came back up, like Dante didn't look like he knew where he was whatsoever. In Ring of Honor, we get that 20 count instead of that 10 count, man. And ref made it to 17 before Dante got back in. So a little bit of a nail biter right there. But yeah, Martin made it back in. Bennett going for a quick cover. Only got a 1 count. Bennett drops Martin with a DDT. Did evasion springboard, hitting a big enziguri. Martin put Bennett into a package pile driver position for pulling up into a powerbomb for a near fall. All around this, I thought it was a great match. As a good showing. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good match as well. For the fact that these guys are tag team guys, to put them in a match like this, it's uncomfortable. Let's be honest. Dante had a lot of run in AEW as a singles guy because of his brother being hurt. But, for both of them to go out there and do what they did here in the time slot, it was good. And they asserted their roles from the beginning. Mike Bennett refused the Code of Honor. That might be the first guy to refuse the Code of Honor since we had the reboot. And it's an easy way to get heel heat from the crowd there when you refuse to shake hands with somebody. And as you mentioned, I thought that they really made it evident. The difference between AEW and ROH here, and the small nuance thing, was the 20 count. And I did enjoy that at 17, it really builds the suspense. And I know it's longer, and I know people probably are used to the 10 count. It's a different set of optics, but those type of differences are important to differentiate the product. And you want to keep the tradition of ROH because that's always been the case. And things like the Code of Honor, things like the 20 count, very important to keeping the lineage and the history of ROH alive by making people feel a certain way. I look back at, Major League Soccer when it first started. I was thinking about this as I was watching this, when they went to overtime instead of penalty kicks when the league started. And instead of having the descending clock or the clock going up towards 90 minutes, they had it going down because that's what the American audience was used to. I would hate for ROH to differentiate what they are, because traditionally you want them to feel like they used to be, because you want to attract those that used to watch the product. And again, you want it to feel different than AEW. You don't want it to feel like canned product that comes from both sides. To me, ROH feels a lot different than AEW, and that's a big compliment.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. I was talking to a friend of mine during the show tonight, and he was like, they're doing such a good job of making it feel like its own thing. It's still, and I mean this as a compliment in the best way, has kind of an indie feel to it still, as far as the product goes, compared to what we see of AEW. That was the last thing I wanted to see, was like AEW 2.0 coming out of ROH. So I think they're doing a great job of it, man. Martin hit a full Nelson slam to score the win. Nice finish there. Taven comes in quick and gets a cheap shot on Dante. And then I really enjoyed the kind of like exchange that they had with each other. It was like, what, they weren't holding mics in hand, but we were hearing it, through the booms and the ambient audio of just them kind of going at each other. It's definitely building heat between these two teams. And I think they're be both really, really good teams to have in that Reach of the Sky ladder match.
And I know that, like, obviously they're building towards the Reach for the Sky tag team ladder match, but it feels like the undercard of the tag division is almost stronger than AEW's main roster. Like, there's a lot more depth where these guys feel like they have a little bit more importance, and you have the time and the availability on your card to really put importance on this tag division. And for guys like Top Flight and the Kingdom, this is huge. And seeing Dante Martin get a clean pinfall here too, it's few and far between on the AEW show. Like, he's usually on the receiving end of a loss. mean, we saw them win the Battle Royal on Christmas Eve and all that stuff. They've been on the winning side sometimes, but Dante Martin's usually fodder for another person to beat. Seeing him get some shine here. And then also, I mean, Mike Bennett didn't look worse for the wear here. It just was a good match because both teams didn't have their partners involved. And, when you're watching as a fan, you're like, okay, cool. These guys are not part of a tag team match. They're not used to doing this. And it feels like they're building towards a bigger feud. And that's cool because we're going to have sub feuds in this ladder match. It's not just going to be a bump fest. Of course it will be though. It's going to be absolutely electric, but you have all these little side feuds that are building here and they're planting some seeds for really good stuff come March 31st in LA.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a hell of a card.
So we move to this next match here, and it's the third of the night, and we have Ari Daivari and Slim J with Smart Mark Sterling taking on Metalik and Blake Christian. If we have to hear that Trustbusters music, dude, I swear I hear it in my sleep because we hear so much Trustbusters. So we have a lot of fun stuff here. Obviously, Metalik and Blake Christian got the win, and Trustbusters are doing their job. They're supposed to be enhancement talent, and every show needs it, and it seems like they're going to be the guys. And I like that Blake Christian and Metalik getting some love here because Blake Christian, I mean, if you guys are familiar with All Heart from GCW, I'm a huge fan of it. And Metalik, too, showed out last week, and he's continuing to prove why he's a very impressive luchador. But I thought to open the match with Rick Abani informing us that Slim J wears and tears $350 designer shirts to the ring was a nice piece here. Which was an interesting thing because, again, in losing effort, I know the Trustbusters got a lot of heat on AEW when we were watching them, and rightfully so. They were like, they did not fit in, but dare I say they're sort of entertaining here, especially when they know their role. Like they are jobbers and they know it, and they're really enhancing the guys, and they're bumping all of the ring for Metalik and Blake Christian.
Absolutely. And like they're jobbers that are still getting their shit in, man. Like I'm really impressed with Slim J in the ring, like as much. And he just immediately gets heat walking out with that fucking stupid flipped up gold sequin visor. I love watching Mark pull out those crispy undershirts out of his jacket and hand them out as they're coming down. But man, Metalik and Blake Christian together, like just continuous movement offense, man. Like really, really impressive. I mean, I think, they set it up nicely. This is not going to be the last that we see of them as a team. And I'm really excited to see that because I thought that they made great dancing partners. They were fantastic in the ring together. They're just both so quick. Blake Christian, man, like I said, I hadn't seen a whole lot of him before ROH Weekly TV started up. Just really impressed with the kid. Also, man, Metalik's ring gear was on point tonight. Some really, really, really cool.
Yeah, so we also, after this match, we got Samoa Joe and Mark Briscoe was officially announced for the ROH World TV title at SuperCard of Honor. We see a video package hyping up Mark Briscoe and the history of Samoa Joe and Mark Briscoe, and Samoa Joe's never lost to Mark Briscoe. He's only lost once to Jay Briscoe. They're utilizing ROH history and the video library to really build that this match is important. And then we get Mark Briscoe challenging Tony Nese next week to clear positions with Smart Mark and his varsity athletes before SuperCard of Honor. So keeping Mark Briscoe very much busy, building him up. Of course, they're going to fatten him up with a win here to build him up for Joe. As I'm watching this, I'm like, there's no way that Mark Briscoe loses to Joe, but I'm also trying to picture it in my brain of Samoa Joe losing. That's what the best pro wrestling is. I can't picture either happening right now, and that's what makes it exciting. I think my gut betting odds say Mark Briscoe's not losing in LA, but I kind of have to see it to believe it right now because Samoa Joe's been booked so strong in ROH.
Yeah, man, same here. I feel like it'd be hard. This is hard to give Mark a loss here with him kind of going for his first singles title, especially, in the memory of, with Jay.
Right.
Jay had his singles run. Mark never got to have his singles run. So it definitely serves as like an homage to Jay at the same time, as well as a big step in the career for Mark Briscoe. But yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Like, I can't really see it going either way. That's my favorite kind of match, is one that I can't predict. So I'm looking forward to seeing Mark Briscoe, Tony Nese next week. Also, just love him putting the entire Smart Mark stable on fucking notice. He's like, Guess what? I'm about to whoop all these boys' asses. I love Mark Briscoe, man. I'm so glad that he's at the forefront. I hope we don't get a week where we don't get to see him on TV.
Agreed, man. We also got the recap of him announcing on Rampage for the Reach the Sky ladder match we keep on referencing for the ROH vacant World Tag Team Championships. And that leads us into Eddie Kingston jobbing out Jeeves K. This was just more build up for the main event of SuperCard of Honor for the ROH World title. Claudio was in the crowd. Kingston got in the ring. He threw coffee all over his shirt, or by accident, clearly. And Claudio was upset. He left ringside. And, Kingston just took control and he made him tap out with the stretch plum. So that was it. Eddie Kingston got the win, being booked awesomely strong. There's a lot of very innate heat between these two guys based on their history, but they're doing a good job of planting more seeds of just Claudio has been an absolute nuisance, man, on AEW and also in ROH. Like, you're really starting to see all that heel stuff come out. And we'll talk about Wheeler in a sec, but there's something very booable about the BCC. And it's hard to believe we're at this point because they were such I wouldn't say white meat babyface, but they were so likable as characters and how the tide has turned. And it's interesting because it would be so easy just to make like Eddie Kingston should be the heel here and Claudio would be the face, but they reverse the roles here. Eddie Kingston feels like the Dark Knight of ROH coming in as his vigilante, coming in and making sure that he's doing right. And Claudio is the heel, and he's doing such a good job. Like the Jason Statham version of the heel, where he's coming out and just looking menacing, but just in a cocky, athletic way, not doing anything else, but taking advantage of the things he can take advantage of.
Yeah, kind of an elitist, like look down my nose at you kind of heel. And that works. It pairs so well with Eddie, who's just like the fucking everyman's champion, Yep. Like, love to see it. Because, I mean, you can put, I think you hit it right on the head, man. Like, yeah, it would make more sense for, Eddie to be the heel. But, man, you can make Eddie a heel. He's never going to be a heel to me. He's so over with me. I'm really excited about this program between them. And I thought this was a really, because as soon as I saw him come out with Jeeves K also talk about being sick of that Trustbusters music, I'm like, damn, man, when they come out in singles, they can't get their own song.
Right.
But, I knew this was going to be a squash. I'm like, so what really is the point of this? But yeah, I thought it was a great layer of storytelling, kind of add another, bullet point in the Claudio versus Eddie Kingston saga that we're getting here. Also, it was a super fucking large coffee, man. Like, Claudio's not a small guy. It covered that entire shirt from like collar to belly, man. Yeah. But I thought that was really cool. I mean, like, he walked out to the crowd. He wasn't even out there for 30 seconds before he threw Jeeves into the barricade there and knocked that coffee all over him. Did I see this correctly? Did Claudio toss his chair over the barricade as he was leaving?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, he was just selling how pissed off he was that it got all over his white shirt.
You want to talk about not having honor, man? That's not a very classy move. Like,
man without honor right now, and he's starting to lose his cool. But we got more Trustbusters in the back, and Smart Mark was trying to talk with Lexi Nair about the losses. Davari was trying to challenge Metalik and Blake Christian to a trios match if they could find a partner. So they're teasing what we're going to see at the end of the night. Some more build towards that trios division, or we were talking about it, trying to build that 6-man division up. And we have a title match tonight we will discuss with the boys in the embassy. But other than that, there really hasn't been a lot of 6-man team. They're trying to build it up, and it looks like this Metal League team and Blake Christian is going to be involved in that, not really the tag division. So we'll see where they put them. Maybe it could be both.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had, man. Was like, we were talking like, what are they going to do? We've got these 6-man titles, but there doesn't really seem to be any other 6-man teams besides Dalton Castle and the boys. So yeah, we'll get a little bit further into it as we make it down the card. But I was really glad to see us having that question last week and have it immediately answered the next week.
It's great too, because I mean they address it. I'm sure they know, because they're looking at the depth of the roster. They either have to sign some more talent that they're willing to pay and have them travel from town to town with them, or build from within and take guys off AEW. I'm curious what they do. But we have this ROH Women's World Champion Proving Ground match, and Athena taking on High-In. And it's the same thing as that Willie Mack Claudio match. You last 10 minutes or win, you get a future title match. And really at this point, I mean, Athena just dominated. This was honestly no contest here. Athena just dominated, and she's fresh off that defense against Willow Nightingale in the main event last week, looking really, really strong. We're going to get her championship challenger coming up, which we'll announce in a second where she's from. What did you think about this match? I feel like it was just just an enhancement program and, development for Athena to look like a strong champion. That's the job they did.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I thought High-In got a little bit more offense than I thought she was going to get in. She's got a cool look. I've not seen, this is my first time seeing High-In, so I think she's going to be a good talent, and hopefully that we get to see a little bit more of her here in the women's division. But yeah, it was definitely a showcase, and I think that Athena just, man, she's almost, it almost seems like recklessly stiff. Like it's some of hers, I mean,
Right.
I didn't hear anything. I haven't heard any reports about Willow being hurt or anything like this after last week's match. But like this match too, like, man, some of these spots are just straight up a little uncomfortable to watch. Like that, she had that power bomb that she hit her like outside the ring
Off
into
the apron with the power
yeah.
onto the floor. Yeah.
I was like, good Lord, man. I was like, I mean, she must just be really that good at doing her job if nobody's getting hurt. But man, yeah, it's made me a little nervous more than one point in this match. But she's really leaning into this fucking heel role, man. I mean, she's getting a lot of heat with the crowd. You know, she's still, you know, mockingly shaking hands at the end of a ring. So still, you know, at the end of a match, still abiding, you know, quote unquote, by the code of honor, but doing it in a real shit heel way.
Yeah, and Athena, I think she's really leaning into all the stuff we saw on Dark, where she beat the shit out of that enhancement talent, got a lot of heat from people, and who knows if it was a work or a shoot, or now they're just making it into a work shoot where now she's just doing it as her character. But yeah, I saw a lot of that too. Where I mean, even at the end, she threw high end face first into the women's title, just very rough. Like, and again, they might talk about it in the back, like, I want this to be your character, but it adds to the edge because she comes out with the flashy entrance. She feels like you would like her because of her moveset is exciting and everything she does in the ring. But immediately just being out there, you can just tell if you're watching as a casual fan, first time seeing Athena, you know she's a heel, and it's because of just her facial expressions, her in-ring actions, and lack of honor, because it's so clear with the code of honor to establish who the face and the heel is.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting a take that they're going with, that we have both the men's champion and the women's champion are both coming out as pretty hot heels.
True. And we have Lexi Nair in the back. We mentioned before with Metalik and Blake Christian want their hand at the 6-man championship. And interestingly enough, they introduced their partner for next week, AR Fox, who's already sort of initiated in another trio with Top Flight, you know, with Dante and Darius. What were your thoughts on this? Like with Metalik and Blake Christian, especially with Dante and Darius on this roster too? Didn't seem weird to AR Fox down involved with Metalik and Blake Christian.
I thought the same thing, because I was thinking when we were talking last week that maybe we were going to see Top Flight with AR Fox be in the trios division, but now I think maybe Top Flight is going to be heading to the ring, to the Reach for the Sky ladder match, and looks like maybe AR Fox, Metalik, and Blake Christian are going to be in the trios. I mean, I think that it's fine to have a little bit of interchangeability with your teams and your rosters, especially for the size that they got between the tag division and the 6-man. But I like it. Yeah, it was not something that I expected, but I think I would much rather see Top Flight in the tag title picture right now instead of Metalik and Blake Christian. No, and, you know, no detriment to Blake Christian and Metalik, but it's just a team that I've got a little bit less experience with. You know, Top Flight has, especially with Darius being hurt more than once in the last year, they just really haven't had the chance to spread their wings and, you know, fly to the heights that we know that they're capable of. So yeah, I like the idea of definitely keeping them in the tag team, keeping them as a team, and not adding them to the trios picture right now.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And as we develop the different divisions, this next match really emphasized what's going on in the undercard of the TV division. Because outside of Mark Briscoe and Samoa Joe fighting for that championship, it seems like they're going to have sub rankings here. And part of this was Silas Young is a former ROH TV champion. He's someone that, you know, he says he's the best ROH TV champion in history. He beat Marcus Cross in a pretty quick squash match here. He hit the PG Wadger plunge for the win. He got on the mic. Like I said, he was talking some shit about ROH and talking about how he wants the TV championship. And then Shane Taylor came out, and then they challenged each other. So again, perfect job of building, especially if you're a fan just watching for the first time with this reboot, you're reestablishing where everybody goes. And now it feels like now we have this ranking system when outside of Mark Briscoe and Samoa Joe for the TV title, now we have Silas Young and Shane Taylor.
Dude, really looking forward to Silas Young versus Shane Taylor. You know, Silas Young's whole gimmick is he's the last real man in wrestling. Brother, he fucking looks like it. He looks like Jake Roberts and Magnum TA had a baby.
100%. Dude, like, took the words out of my mouth.
I think Caprice said that tonight too. Like his ring style, his moveset's the same way. But yeah, man, he walked out and I saw that's that stash. And I was like, oh man, yeah, this guy's a real ass kicker. He means business. So, yeah, did a little background of, I was like, man, I wonder if I've actually, got a chance to see this guy live. And, no, I haven't seen a lot of him. He's pretty much exclusively ROH. Did a little work with WWE back in the day as some enhancement talent. But I think him and Shane Taylor is not who I expected to answer that call, but I was really stoked to see him come out. So I sounds like we're going to get that match next week. I thought maybe for a minute that would be something they would say for SuperCard of Honor, but yeah, we've still got another week of TV in there before. Actually, shoot, we have 2 weeks of TV before the.
I think we do, yeah.
Wow,
yeah, because
man.
the go home show will be right there, right before the Friday. So Thursday,
the day
Fridays.
before, yeah,
yep.
Man. All right, so still a lot of meat on the bone there. But yeah, looking forward to that matchup.
And we have Lexi there. She was super busy today, and this is probably her most uncomfortable interview. She had Athena, and Athena was just absolutely, she was raging on her. She took the mic, and then she was asking,
her in the face.
Yeah, she was pretty rough with Lexi in this, and good for Lexi taking like a champ. But Athena, the main point of her promo here was asking about the whereabouts of Yuka Sakazaki. And Athena was saying that since Sasaki was wrestling in Japan, despite being injured, that meant Sasaki was afraid of her. Athena then challenged Sakazaki to a title match at SuperCard of Honor, sight unseen. So those unfamiliar with, Yuka Sakazaki, she signed to Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling. She's right now the current Princess of Princess champion. She's a former 3-time Princess Tag Team champion, and she is currently signed with AEW. We've seen her on Dark. She's been involved with Rio, so we definitely have seen her on our screens. She's a really talented wrestler. It's interesting that she's jumping the line, though, for this ROH Women's Championship. Not sure how I feel about this, especially with Trish Adora, who we'll talk about in a second, who's clearly been on a roll, really over with the crowd. Her moveset seems to be really effective. Maybe we'll see Trish Adora having a different shot later. But what were your thoughts on Sakazaki getting a shot almost immediately?
Yeah, man, kind of caught me off guard as well. I mean, I liked I think it'll be a great match. So, I mean, interesting. I kind of think that it was a little soon to maybe jump to it. I thought the same thing. Maybe we'd see Trish Adora or somebody else that we're seeing on weekly ROH TV get a shot at SuperCard. I mean, obviously not confirmed, just a call out. We haven't heard anything back yet, but I don't see why they would do it like this if that was not the payoff that they were looking for.
Right.
Man, yeah, I liked she's Athena's just coming off as really unhinged, like in general, man. Like you said, she's being super rough with Lexi, and the mood behind this call out was, it's definitely like an inner ego struggle with Athena, where she's like, "Oh, you're afraid of me." Like, a lot of people, if they think of an opponent's afraid of them, wouldn't give them the time of the day. But she's singling her out and calling her out for this match. Yeah, kind of an interesting choice, but still, a match I'll be excited to see.
So we had the ROH World Six-Man Championship next. The Embassy was defending Brian Cage, Toa Leona, and Khan, taking on Dalton Castle and the boys. The boys have names, by the way, Colton, Brent, and Brandon, for those wondering. This was a pretty quick match. Everyone got their spots, but you do know that Brandon or Brent, if the boys or, Dalton Castle and the boys are going to lose, Dalton Castle's not taking the pin. So I just want to say, I mean, Dalton Castle's whole act is amazing. It is pro wrestling, whether it be the peacock feed he pulls from his jacket and have them pecking at it
out of his hand.
So good. I know Brian Cage, we talked about last week on the show, Brian Cage, potentially his contract coming up. Maybe he's staying, maybe he's not. I thought this was going to be a quick hot shot, especially when I saw the titles on the line. They want to get the titles off him just in case, Brian Cage is not going to be involved with ROH going forward. That might not be the case. Maybe this is an inkling that he's staying. Because Dalton Castle and the boys, former champions, they definitely feel comfortable with them being champions before. But no, they kept on the Embassy. They got the win here. Short match, probably expected a little bit more, but it was just there, in my opinion. But I love Dalton Castle's act. It's a highlight every time he's on the screen.
Yeah, man, same here. I mean, it was just there as far as in-ring work went, especially on Dalton and the boys' side. But I'm just happy to see that entrance anytime for any reason. But yeah, deep down, I was hoping that Dalton Castle and the boys would take the titles off of them. But man, I mean, the Khan, Toa, and Brian Cage are just a force to be reckoned with. Khan has the widest abs I've ever seen in my life. Like each one of them are like 9 inches long across. It looks like, I mean, it was cool. Really interesting to see, them building the trios division, announcing a couple more teams tonight. But man, just at this, quick expo, I don't know who in the hell is going to be able to take the belts off the Embassy. They're just an absolute force to be reckoned with.
Well, after the match, the Embassy were beating up Castle and the boys. We had the aforementioned AR Fox, Metalik, and Blake Christian all over the show, made the save for this. So seems like we have an immediate challenger for the Embassy. Whether AR Fox, Metalik, and Blake Christian will take the titles, that remains to be seen. I'd be shocked if they do that, especially since they've never teamed before. But maybe they're just trying to make, send some shockwaves. Like I said, maybe if Brian Cage is not going to be involved with ROH, they want to get those titles off as quickly as possible. But who knows? I mean, building up matches from week to week, it's good because it makes us look forward to the next week. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, it'd be. I'm excited to see this matchup, whether it be next week or week after, or if they save it for the SuperCard of Honor.
Next match here, and this was another showcase match with Trish Adora against a pretty formidable opponent, Madison Rayne. Decent back and forth here. We saw some good spots. Adora was in some jeopardy here quick. Obviously she was in the cross Rayne, and there were some near falls, but of course the demise of everyone taking on Trish Adora is when they fall into the way of this Lariat Tubman. What a finish. This is Trish Adora getting the win. And I'm more and more impressed by her every week. Would love to see a meaningful program for the women's championship with her involved. Maybe it's not a SuperCard of Honor, but maybe we go to Final Battle, something like that, build her up and get her there. But she seems like destined to do big, big things in this division.
Yeah, man, most definitely. Officially my favorite finisher name going right now. She's awesome, man. I hope we get to see her week to week. Also, the second week in a row that we've seen 2 women's matches on ROH TV.
Absolutely, and quality matches too. Like it was a really good match.
Not just fluff, not just filler, man. It was an excellent match. I think she's definitely a contender for the title, and hope to see her working her way into that spot soon.
I have to say, dude, and I love when I see Northern Light suplex. I am a sucker for Northern Light suplexes, and Adora does one of the better Northern Light suplexes in pro wrestling. They need to bring that move back. We see some guys break it out, and you see it on the independents, but not nearly enough. The Northern Light suplex is, cream of the crop when it comes to suplexes.
Oh, most definitely, man. Right up there. The only one I think that ties with it for me is the Fisherman. So,
Fisherman's a good one. I mean, we can do it is March Madness. Maybe do a 64 suplex tournament and see what comes out on top. I know my number 1 seed probably Northern Lights, or that Tazplex with the leg hooked in. That's got to be a high seed.
Oh, absolutely, man.
All right, next we have Lexi Nair backstage with Top Flight. Darius Martin was talking about Matt Taven, and he says ahead of their match next week, what was theirs is now theirs for the taking. So quick little hype up, and then we move into the Outrunners, Truth Magnum and Turbo Floyd visits the Tavern Veterans, taking on Chris Daniels and Matt Sydal. Just for historical sakes, Chris Daniels and Matt Sydal, former tag team champions. This is the first time they're teaming in 16 years. I mean, this was a great showcase of these veterans being used in a good spot, trying to build up momentum in the history towards this ladder match. And, I love to see Chris Daniels in action. And this is the perfect use of Matt Sydal. This is the first time I felt comfortable watching him on AEW. And this is the first time it feels like he's being used effectively. And I was really a fan of this.
Dude, same here. It did not look like it had been 16 years by any means. They did not miss a beat, man. They just went together so well. Also, got to shout out the Outrunners, man. Local boys here to Louisville and Ohio Valley Wrestling, Turbo Floyd, Truth Magnum. Absolutely love seeing those guys on TV anytime. I mean, they jobbed it out. They did a great job of it.
They look good doing it, though, man. That bleach blonde hair looks good going up, staring at the lights, brother.
They look great doing it. That their gear is just on point, man. Like, they've got the look. They've got the vibe. They're just I'm happy to see them in AEW and ROH both a little bit more often. But, yeah, man, just Chris Daniels, Matt Sydal, they just looked awesome tonight. They are definitely ready for prime time. Maybe we'll get to see them be a contender for the title here. But after it was over, man, Aussie Open, they make their way to the stage. Kyle Fletcher gets on the mic, states how they've got their eyes on the titles. And, they kind of call out Sydal and Matt. And, the crowd gets hot about it, wants them to go right now. And, Aussie Open takes a little bit of a dig, basically calls the whole CD and Matt Sydal old, being like, these guys aren't spring chickens. We're not going to, this ain't 2006. We're not going to have a match right now. We're going to make sure that they're rested and can bring us their best. Absolutely love Aussie Open, man. We had nothing but nice things to say about their offense and their style last week. Just can't wait to see more of them. And honestly, Daniels and Sydal versus Aussie Open's a dream match for me.
Yeah, I mean, early favorites to me have to be Aussie Open in that ladder match, but who knows where they go. But I would definitely be satisfied with Aussie Open being the first tag team champions of this new reboot of ROH, because who better than them? It shows they're putting faith in. I mean, honestly, Davis and Fletcher, like I said, they're two of the best, not only in ROH and all of AEW as far as in-ring offense goes. So having them as your tag champs, I mean, kind of a no-brainer to me, but we'll see where they go.
Yeah, I think it books itself there, man.
So we get a video hyping up the main event here, and it's the ROH Pure Championship, Wheeler Yuta versus Clark Connors. And you and I were talking before we went on air. This match was oddly short, especially for a Pure Championship match. Wheeler Yuta showing that heel tendencies, but he pretty much dominated Clark Connors here. And the story is after the match, but during the match, I mean, what were your thoughts? Obviously, I want to give a quick shout out to my boy Dean Malenko, is one of the judges, one of my favorites of all time, top 5. He is fantastic. Seeing him as a judge for ROH, the perfect utilization of one of the best technical wrestlers of the history. I can go back to Northern Light suplexes. No one does it better than him.
That's right, man. Yeah, and this is, I think, second week in a row we've gotten to see him as one of the judges. Same with Colt Cabana too. Man, I was like you. I was very surprised. I expected the match to be a little bit longer, and B, just expected Connors to get in a little bit more offense. Not that he looked, came out looking weak or bad or anything. He definitely got it in where he could. But yeah, Yuta dominated this match, man. Also, man, that's his signature move now, is sneaking in that closed fist, man. He got 2 in the night because it was behind the ref's back. Some real heel shit, real anti-pure championship. That definitely shows a lack of honor, which, the irony of that, especially tying back in with BCC, saying people like Eddie Kingston have no honor, that's not a very honorable thing to be doing. But yeah, I thought it told a good story. I definitely want to see more of Clark Connors in ROH. I hope this isn't the last that we see of him by any means. But yeah, a little, like you said, a little quicker than I thought it was going to be. But Yuta looked great, man. His new attitude is translating in his moveset as well. Like you can see that he's high on himself right now. He's walking the walk and he's talking the talk. He's backing it up.
Yeah, and speaking of talking the talk, I really was impressed with his promo the last few weeks. And even they showed the highlight video package. Of course, they clip it up to take the best spots. But just, the raw promo last week talking about the young boys in Japan and saying he's not picking up laundry and he's this 96 Bulls. I love this heel side of Yuta. And we see glimpses of this when he got on the mic in AEW. But I really feel like he's falling into his own here. He's not that happy-go-lucky guy and the best friends anymore. He feels like he's really finding his way. And it's tough. I mean, we watched Jungle Boy on the mic last night really struggle. A guy like Wheeler Yuta, like for where he's come from, like I feel like he's come a really long way, and he's light years better than Jungle Boy on the mic. And it just shows, I mean, sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't.
Oh yeah, man. I think it's the opposite for Yuta. He gets better on the mic every time it gets in his hand. And I can think back to the first time that he actually, had a promo on his own on AEW TV. And I was just like, oh man, this kid's really stepping up. And he's just,
in Philly. They were in Philly when he got on the
in
mic.
His hometown.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's just exponentially gotten better each time, man. So yeah. And not to bury the lead here, but yeah, calls out Shibata, man. And crosses his legs, sits down the ring, looks straight into the hard cam, and says, I'm not going to be able to rest till this is who I defend this title against. So, yeah, really just going straight for the king of the LA dojo there. What do you think?
I'm very excited for this match, if not the most excited for this match for that weekend. And there's the WrestleMania weekend is filled with all these amazing matches. This might top it all, and the ROH Pure Rules might make it even better. And I'm curious to see how Shibata's booked here. We saw him lose pretty much clean to Orange Cassidy. I wonder if he's going to have a huge spot with ROH now that he's kind of burning the bridge with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Maybe he's going to have a frequent spot on their TV and then give him the Pure Championship, or it's just a notch in Wheeler's belt where it's just like probably the biggest win of his whole career. We go back to the Moxley loss. That was a huge moment for him. But if he gets a clean Pure Championship win defense over Shibata, that is a huge, huge moment that, you got to circle and be like, Wheeler Yuta has really arrived, and they're putting a lot of stock in him in ROH. So either way it goes, I'm excited for it. And Shibata as a focal point on a SuperCard of Honor pay-per-view, like what else could you ask for? This card is going to be loaded. And it feel like you mentioned, 3 weeks away, 2 weeks away, we have the whole card pretty much out here. And I can't wait to watch this and get that, that WrestleMania weekend started the right way.
Yeah, really excited to see what they do to continue to build the story in the next 2 weeks. You and I both said all of the ROH pay-per-views that we got last year with zero build whatsoever were just bangers, all of them. So this one is going to be completely stacked. I can't wait.
All right, let's get into top honors, talk about our match of the week and what was our favorite part of ROH TV this week. All right, Colton, what do you got for me? What's your favorite match for this week, or favorite moment, I should say?
Man, favorite moment of the week is probably going to be Yuta calling out Shibata. I think if I had to pick, if I was just going off match, surprisingly, I might say Willie Mack versus Claudio. Just great to see Willie and see that show out. But I don't think we can beat that call out moment, man. Setting up this pure title match for SuperCard of Honor.
Completely agree with you, and that's where I'm at as well. I think having Shibata versus Wheeler Yuta, that's going to steal the show, as I mentioned before. But I mean, also going back to the whole card at large. But I have to say that was probably my favorite. I mean, you're going to look at this moment as one of those huge moments building up to this big pay-per-view that is a coming out party for ROH. No way around it. This is a huge coming out party for them that we've arrived. Like, I know we've had the SuperCard of Honor last year when Tony first purchased it, but this is the first one you have some build behind with your own production, with your own storylines, with your own hand-chosen guys, without having to honor what they were doing in their own storylines before they went belly up. So that definitely is my favorite. I know, shout out to Willie Mack as well. Willie Mack showed out in a losing effort. Huge fan of him. Like I said, he's if you want to put some emphasis on someone, I think Willie Mack deserves it, whether it be TV division, the world division. I think if you put some steam behind him with some momentum, I think he could do a lot of great things in ROH.
Oh yeah, man, guy knows how to work a crowd. Like, he perfect guy to have open up the show, because the crowd always loves seeing Willie Mack.
All right, let's get into honorable mentions, where I'm going to recommend a match for you and ask you about the match I showed you last week. All right, Cole, before we get to the match I recommend this week, what was the match that I gave you last week, and what were your thoughts on it?
So you gave me Samoa Joe versus Kobashi, October 1st, 2005. Man, first initial thoughts, you weren't kidding. Joe is lean here, man. I mean, he's probably 21, 22 here.
Yeah,
I mean,
something like that.
He's still coming in, I'm pretty sure, like 270, 280, but he's just super lean. Not that I'm not trying to say that he looks out of shape or anything now, but he's older, he's put on more size. But man, it was and talk about a hot crowd, man. I mean, like, Rabbit is putting it lightly. Like, they were blowing the roof off of this place. Joe opens it up, getting slaps on Kobashi. This is awesome chant 4 minutes into the match, man. Like I said, like, the crowd was just super stoked. I don't know if I've seen that Joe's suicide dive through the ropes. Like, I gasped out loud watching it. Like, I was so nervous about how it was going to land, man. Kobashi's chops are some of the stiffest I've ever seen. And, like, I know people talk a lot about how sweaty Joe gets during a match, or just in general when he's on TV. Man, Kobashi's chopping him, and it's just throwing up like mist clouds every time that he hits him. But yeah, man, about the one thing that I really took note on, and Joe in his younger days, the height of his kicks, man, that he was getting. I mean, Kobashi's not a small dude. I mean, he's I think actually probably got an inch or two on Joe, and Joe is just
right,
like getting his head to the ground and hitting him right, like getting him on the top of the head each time. Man, Joe hits this big boot to Kobashi while he's sitting in a chair outside the ring, and Kobashi's sell on it, man, was so good. I mean, he came up and he didn't look like he knew who he was, where he was. But then he finally, Kobashi comes in and gets a little bit of offense on Joe. One of my favorite spots was Kobashi chopped Joe over the barricade. Like, I don't think I've ever from a seated position. He wasn't up on the barricade. He was sitting in a chair. Kobashi hits him with a chop, and he flips over backwards over the barricade, man. Yeah, just all around great match. These guys are a perfect pairing, I think, between size and also kind of like moveset, like very similar stuff going on. Joe twisted into like a spinning buckle bomb on Kobashi at one point, which was absolutely wild. Joe locks in the muscle buster, man, and takes him down. And like we've talked about how protective a finish that is, I was like, oh man, this has got to be it. And Kobashi kicks out of it, man. I did not see that coming. And that Kobashi hit this move twice. It was like a half Nelson suplex that he hit and like dropped Joe pretty much directly on his head, which was just an amazing spot. hits it twice. Joe manages to kick out twice, and then he finishes it up with a chop fest and a lariat. Kind of wish that he had got him pinned on that second. I kind of wish it had ended at that second half Nelson suplex, but man, this match was an absolute banger. I can't thank you enough for recommending it. I had a blast watching this.
Well, I definitely have a great match for you this week, and it is a match that is in, we were talking about the 6-man division and trying to figure out what it could be. This match to me is the bar, and according to Meltzer, it's 5 and more stars, like 5.25 stars it's largely considered one of the best 6-man matches in the history of the company. And this is the team of Dragon Kid, Horiguchi, and Ryo Saito versus Blood Generation, which is a team of Sema, Masato Yoshimo, and Naruki Doi. And it's for the 6-man tag ROH SuperCard of Honor 5. So this is a 6-man match, an absolutely insane spot fest. And all these guys are from Dragon Gate. And they tore the house down at ROH SuperCard of Honor. It's fast paced, absolutely inspiring spots that are going to leave your jaw on the ground, sequences. And people are like, the crowd was hot, and they got even hotter as the match progressed. And it is the best version of a 6-man match party atmosphere that you can watch. And this is back in 2010. So at this point, it's 13 years old, but it lives up to it. I just watched it. It's an absolute instant classic. So you can catch it on Honor Club. Can't wait for you to give us the review next week.
Hell yeah, man. Looking forward to it. I will say, man, talking about Honor Club a little bit, the last 2 matches you've recommended to me, I haven't been able to find on the streaming platform. I've had to go through and watch them on YouTube. So they're still putting up a lot of the back catalog, especially some of the older stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's still out there. It's very accessible, and I was able to find a good stream.
All right. Well, good to know, guys. So again, Honor Club is still a work in progress. So we will continue to report on that for you guys because I was pretty critical of it when I first came on here, but the stream right now, the live stuff has been seamless, but as far as the discography and trying to get everything together, categorizing all the stuff in a seamless fashion, we took it for granted with the original WWE Network. It wasn't easy to do, I'm sure.
No, it's a massive library, man, and it's going to take some work. And it's also, personally, playing with it a little bit more. It's a little bit more intuitive the more you get in there and mess around. So.
All right, let's get into the final handshake, say goodbye, prepare for next week, and tell us what's going on the at Mullet.mania world. All right, Colton, as we say goodbye to Thursday night, what are we preparing for on the debate? I know you guys recorded yesterday, so anything exciting?
Yeah, man, really exciting debate this week. We had Seth Phelps from Chick Foley Show. Seth and I are actually from the pretty much same neck of the woods. I'm from Bowling Green, Kentucky. Him and Sheener from Morgantown. So this is the first time I've actually gotten to, besides just the group chat on Instagram, this is the first time I've actually gotten to talk to Seth virtually in person. So we had an absolute blast, man. We, Seth's a big WWE guy, and I kind of ride the line. The Chads are definitely big AEW fellas. I lean a little bit more AEW myself, but best topic of the week was definitely who's the better heel, MJF or Roman, and we really break it wide open. So man, it was a really great show. I had a lot of fun. This will actually be my last week on the debate for a little while. So Tom is coming back next week. So catch the OG Fig Kid back in his normal third square there starting next week. So.
All right, you guys can still get your Colton fix here on Thursday nights, and who knows where else you'll catch him. Maybe he'll be on the wrap-up show. Who knows, man? We love Colton. He'll be anywhere we can use him. He's the utility guy. You guys can check out Friday night. Tomorrow night, St. Patty's Day, we have a special great episode of Shot of Nostalgia. Mike and I just finished recording last night. Unforgiven 1998, and then 2 episodes of Raw. And it was the first wrestling show I went to in person from the Nassau Coliseum, 4/20, 1998. Great night of wrestling, crazy stuff. I mean, they have the casket where Paul Bearer allegedly digs up Undertaker's parents' remains, and they show it on TV, and then they light him on fire, and then Kane chokeslams Undertaker into the casket on top of his dead mom. Like, well, I don't know. People don't talk about this enough. Like, this is how it was insane what they were doing in 1998. Everyone wants to talk about the Katie Vick stuff, but they just gloss right over that they have worms and like a skeleton that was supposed to be Undertaker's parents in 1998 right on TV. I'm a kid in person seeing this happen. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, wild shit, man. Definitely would not fly. Not something parents would be taking their kids to today, I don't think.
But 1998 is off to a great start. I mean, we were a little bit skeptical in the beginning, like, man, this undercard sucks. Don't know what they're doing, but they're getting into a rhythm right now. And like, you're seeing the emergence of obviously Stone Cold, but the other undercard is amazing too. Like The Rock is really flourishing. Ken Shamrock's been amazing. And like the storyline as well, and building up these characters and watching them develop into these huge stars, even Triple H becoming the leader of DX. Like, it's quite clear that this roster stacked, even Mick Foley, like there's so many guys that we took for granted because like we just had it on our weekly TV. I can't imagine having all these really transcendent stars on a TV at the same exact time. It was, the stars aligning, perfect circumstances. I don't think we'll ever have that time in wrestling again.
No, man, a super, super special time. You guys are doing a great job covering it.
I appreciate it. And, we got to get out of here, guys, because we got to get out of here, and that's it. We got to get the weekend started, and hope you guys have a safe St. Patty's Day. Colton, great job as usual. We'll catch you guys, and make sure you guys abide by the code of honor. Catch you guys next week.